I should let you guys know before I get too far into this that I am kind of sort of piggybacking off of some of the ideas that may have been shared by Uncle Kage, but they're not necessarily the same. This video is actually meant purely for comedy, so take it with a nice big ol' helping of salt, please.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode. So for today, we're going to be talking about questions. Questions you might get on the con floor or just outside the con area that might be a little uncomfortable or not your favorite, and how to answer them as best you can, really, and in a way that isn't damaging and may or may not end up on B-roll. I mean, no matter what you do, you might, but hopefully these will keep you out of the uncanny valley of uncomfortable questions to reporters. This is an idea I decided to do because I've seen a lot of Kage's take on this, and I want to give my own opinion, my own spin on it. So here are some ways you can answer really genuinely uncomfortable questions that the press might end up asking you, even by mistake. Let's go. So, is this a fetish? Ugh, God, I hate that, because while there are definitely some aspects of the fandom that are fetishized, the entire fandom as a whole is not really a fetish. Fetish implies sexual, and not everybody in the fandom is really into that. So if you are, cool. But if you are, remember that we're not all that way, so when you're answering these questions, be very, very careful what you choose to say. If you're not really into it, you can always default to the, I'm sure there are some people in the fandom that see it that way, but I personally do not. Or you can take the alternative route of, well, no, the fandom as a whole is really just about being a fan of anthropomorphic animals, and that's really all there is. And if they continue to pry, you can kind of very gently explain that that's not the whole fandom. Sure, it's some people, but fetish, the entire fandom? No, it's not. Not really.
But you have to admit, it's pretty weird, right? You're dressed up like a giant animal. That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little weird, but we're all kind of weird. It's really weird to me that, there are people that put paint on their face and scream at football games. I believe that was mentioned in a former press interview by, I forget which channel did it, but Aberguine covered it really well. Additionally, I think it's really weird that bronies will sing the Friendship is Magic song in McDonald's and think nothing of it. I think it's super weird that, we are pretty much ingrained by hailing taxis by just like waggling our arms in the street. That's kind of weird. I also think it's super weird that, women in society have been trained to think of like red lipstick as sexy, but it's really just a color. It's all pretty weird if you're being honest, but if someone asks you, don't you think this is a bit weird? It's pretty weird, right? You have to admit it's really weird. Honestly, the best answer you can give them is, well, if you think about it, we're all pretty weird. Our weird is just a different weird than yours. No matter how obvious you may think your suit is to people, there's always going to be someone that assumes the wrong species. And kind of like people assuming genders, it happens. It's an honest mistake. It should be forgiven. If a reporter comes and asks you why you chose to dress as a cat and you're a raccoon, or you're in like just a basic set of ears and a tail with no fursuit on, and someone asks you why you're a dog, but you're a fox. I mean, mistakes happen. The best way to course correct, if you want to correct them, is to go, well, actually I did choose to be my correct species here, because I relate to them for reasons. Honestly, I've gotten it once or twice because of this marking on my cheek. One or two people have made the mistake of thinking I'm a red panda. I'm not. I'm a dog. Sorry guys, I'm really a dog. But I've just been very polite and said, well, yeah, I really felt akin to the sparkle dog species because they're very high energy and really fun, and that's what led me to creating this character. And it's just a really nice way to not make them feel dumb and correct if you want, or, just leave it if they're not really getting the message. Who cares? It's just a news broadcast. They're not going to wreck your persona or break the fandom or anything. Or they might. There's that. So inevitably, you're going to get that one reporter who has an agenda. They probably aren't going to have a press pass because most cons are pretty good about keeping the really prying ones outside of the doors. But you'll eventually get that one reporter who just asked that one question that is just a little too extra for you. The one I've actually been asked when out shooting here is, so are you covering your face and wearing that animal costume because you have low self-esteem, or you hate yourself, or you have body image issues, or you're sad, or you hate yourself? And to be honest, no. That's not why I suit up. I like being someone else for a little bit, and it's really fun because I get to be goofy and playful and all the things that me out of suit would probably be a little weird. I mean, is it weird while I'm in suit? Yeah, but it's already weird that I'm in suit. So, I mean, hey, let's just make it a little bit weirder. What's the worst that could happen? So if someone asks you a leading question like that, such as, are you in this suit because you have low self-esteem? Are you in this suit because you hate yourself, etc., etc., just say, no, I really enjoy suiting because it lets me be someone else for a little bit and really get in touch with my inner child, or whatever it is that, you really relate to. If it is because you have low self-esteem and this gives you more self-esteem, that's great. But if that's not the case, don't lie. Just tell them the gosh honest truth of why you're in a suit, and, they learn something from it, and you get to contribute something positive for our community. And maybe, hopefully, your words don't get taken out of context and cut like 20 different ways. Maybe, hopefully. We can help. So you heard someone say yiff earlier, did you? You know what the best answer to that question is? Well, actually, there's two really good answers to that question. Firstly, you can say, I haven't really heard that word in a while. Google it. Or, yeah, that's not a polite word in the fandom. Don't say that out loud. It won't be appreciated. Because as much as you can define exactly what yiff means and how it's used in context, when they're going to cut that footage down, they're not going to cut it very nicely. So you might as well let them do their research and define it however they want. Because realistically, even if you give them a really good answer to that, any news program I've seen, with very rare exceptions, and I'm basing a lot of this on what I've seen on Aberguine's channel, typically don't handle the Y word very sensitively, and they use that as the stepping stone to go into the darker side of the fandom and, ooh, aren't they freaks and weird. Just, let them Google it. Tell them you don't really know the best way to define it, and they should just Google it, because honestly, that's what they're going to do anyway, if we're being honest with ourselves right here. I know what you're thinking. I'm not a mascot. This is a fursuit. Yeah, most people don't know that differentiation, so, let them have their pass on that. They don't really know. Maybe they did some research and they say fursuit, but you might get called mascot. It's cool. But if someone asks you how much your fursuit costs, just understand you don't really have to give them an exact number, and it's really none of their business how much your fursuit costs. I like to relate it to stuff, oh yeah, it's about the same price as half my rent or something. Or, oh, it's a fair amount. I had to save up for a few months. You don't have to tell them how much it costs. Of course, if you want to, go for it. But in my experience, when they ask you how much their fursuit costs, it's usually not going to a particularly great purpose. It's probably saying, oh my gosh, why do these furries waste all this money on these big goofy costumes? If you want to tell them how much it costs, go for it. But in my experience, my typical answer is, it cost a fair amount, but, it was a really great investment, and I'm glad I saved up for it. Boom. End of answer. Done. They don't need to know anything else past that. If they keep prying, just walk away. Just walk away. So, like, why do you want to be an animal? Are you, like, not happy being a human? Like, what's up with, like, being a dog? Do you just, like, not want to be a human? It's important for people to know that not every furry wants to be an animal necessarily. It's a misconception. Not every not every furry has a fursuit. Not every furry necessarily has a fursona. Not every furry wants to be an animal. Yeah, there, I said it. Some people are just fans of what they're fans of. I would assume that not every brony wants to be a My Little Pony, and not every cosplayer actually wants to be the character they're cosplaying all the time. There's exceptions, of course. And if you're going to a football game with some guy's jersey, I'm just going to use Gronkowski here because I like the Pats. If you're wearing a Gronk jersey, you don't necessarily want to be Gronk. So saying that, like, to, like, some furry, like, why do you want to be an animal? It's like, dude, I don't. Personally, I love acting and performing as two characters that I feel strongly about, but do I want to be a giant dog all the time? No. I have a life outside of this, too. So, yes, there are days when I am not a dog. I do not dress in this every day. And I do not go outside as a dog all the time, so I do not want to be an animal. I just enjoy performing as an animal. Difference. So this question, it's a trap. Anytime someone goes down the road of, aren't you afraid who's behind the mask? It's usually implying that in our fandom there are, like, bad people that hide behind their fursuits to do terrible, terrible deeds, but most of us know that that's completely ridiculous. There are bad people everywhere. Sure, I'm quite sure there are people that fursuit that are genuinely awful, and when the suit comes off, they're terrible people. But you know what? That's not a fair assumption to make of all people in suits. So if someone asks you, like, aren't you afraid who's under the fursuit? My answer would be, like, no. No, because our community is so strong online that even if whoever is under the fursuit turns out to be a genuinely terrible person, it'll take me about 2 minutes on Furry Amino, Telegram, Twitter, or Instagram to find out. So I will probably know if someone's a bad person before they take their head off. So am I afraid of who's under the fursuit? No, I'm not. In fact, I almost feel more reassured when I see people in fursuit because I get to see their character and the magic isn't broken for me. Like, if I see someone out of suit, it kind of ruins it in some situations because I have that image in my mind. But am I scared if, say, Strobes' head fell off or, say, Telephone tripped and her head went flying? No, that doesn't scare me at all. They're still amazing people even without their fursuits. So am I afraid of what's under fursuits? No, the only thing I'm afraid of under a fursuit is the sweaty ass clothes that they've been wearing in the fursuit for hours. I'm scared of that, but not the people. No, I'm not scared of people who are under the suits. That's ridiculous.